High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, X, and Kick. It's a Revening's WinsDay. Welcome to WinsDay, Revenue Party people. We've got our hot topics and our hot guests we're going to be getting into with hot sales and marketing topics, primarily related to B2B, typically on WinsDay, but you never know. We might be talking B2C, but we want to know, what do you do? If you're here in the comments, talk to us. Leave a comment. Let us know, where are you tuning in from? What is it that you do for a living? And join the conversation. Let us know your opinions, your thoughts, your reactions, but also your questions. And we'll flash those up on the screen throughout the conversation. And it's going to be super fun. We love using StreamYard because it allows us to put the comments up on the screen pretty easily. And it also allows us to play that video and be kind of creative. You can see the little borders here. And then we help businesses go live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and all the other channels. Go to revening.com. Check it out. We've updated the website recently. And let us know if you have any questions or if you want to go live. When you go live, you create a whole content engine that then will get repurposed into short form video, podcast, and other clips that we'll put on social media for you on your social media channels, keeping your queue up to date. So yeah, less about that. But if you want to just go live by yourself and you don't want it done for you by Revening, then just use StreamYard. Here's a QR code. And if you're watching this and you can scan that QR code, then definitely try that. That'll be an affiliate link. So we will get a little cut of that. And then if you're listening on podcast, just email me, Jessie, Jessie @revening.com, and I'll be glad to help you get set up with our affiliate link. But other than that, let's get into our show. I typically mention High Level. We can drop that QR code on the screen, but if you need a CRM marketing automation platform, this is the one to try. Here's a 30-day trial. Definitely check it out. I'm a big fan. We've totally adopted it. We use the agency version. We've white labeled it. So if you have any questions, we are the ones to talk to about High Level. But let's get into it. We have some really great guests to introduce to you tonight. We've got Rocco and Summer. Welcome to the show.
Yay.
Hello, hello. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Absolutely. Well, let's get right into it. We want to know a little bit more about you. And in good old-fashioned WinsDay style, we'd like to know a little bit about you from birth to what brought you to now in 2 minutes. Summer, can you kick us off?
2 minutes. Okay, so I am the daughter of many generations of entrepreneurs. And so I grew up around business owners, and I just got that from an early age. I was also the kid who could not sit still in class, always talking, getting good grades, but getting very bad citizenship scores. So here I am. I know 2 things in life. I know how to cook a really good dinner, and I know how to grow a B2B SaaS company or a professional services company. And how I got here was I never turned down an opportunity to learn. I was always really curious. And whenever somebody had hey, we need this done, I was the idiot who would volunteer for it. And when I left my corporate career, I had just a really seemingly random, disconnected set of experiences that no resume writer knew what to do with, and recruiters wouldn't talk to me. So I just decided that the best thing for me was to start out and just build my own brand. And so I'm 2.5 years into this. I help founders and CEOs stop wasting money on growth strategies that don't give them ROI. And I also run a podcast where I bring on collaborators who talk about how to get it done. And I bring on CEOs who can tell us what good looks like. And so That's it. And it's under 2 minutes, Jessie. I don't know what to do.
What good looks like. I love that. I want to know what good looks like. Let's talk about that at some point too. But thank you for that so much. I mean, I really appreciate you being here. And I don't know. Now I just want to eat dinner with you and, and work in B2B SaaS with you. But yeah, tonight I'll just settle for talking through some hot topics with you that we'll get into here in just a moment. But Rocco, could you do the same and tell your full life story from birth to what brought you to now?
Of course. First of all, thank you so much for having me here, everyone. I come from a town of 1,500 people in Italy, and I spent a good half of my life playing professional soccer until an injury got the best of me. And soccer gave me a mindset. The mindset is that you need to achieve excellence in life. So after I graduated in Italy, I got a scholarship for another degree in the United States. Coming back to Italy, I realized that if I want to do marketing, I need to compete with the best. I don't need to compete with people that are in a market that is not considered the number one in the world. So I made my goal coming back to the United States, which I achieved 10 years ago. And soccer also told me something else. You cannot expect to be the best at what you do. There is always somebody doing things better than you, which means I always need to keep listening and improving, which is the mantra that I followed throughout my whole professional career as well. With that said, being in the United States taught me a lot. This is a market where you cannot sit down and think that your product is the best because somebody else will catch up with you. As a result of that, achieving that excellence is what I always tell people I work with. Your product does not only need to be the best, it needs to achieve to be itself over and over again. To always stay ahead of the curve, be able to win that game. That's what we did in soccer. And looking back at my professional sport career, I always thought that there was a great learning experience because business in the United States is like professional sports. You need to keep fighting every minute to come on top. You can never rest. When you rest, when the competition comes on top of it. So that's kind of my life story in 2 minutes. There is more to it, but if you guys are interested, we can chat later about some more details.
Yes, of course, there's more to your life story. And unfortunately, we only have an hour today, but yeah, let's get into it. So we'll get into a little small part of your life, which is your expertise and your thought leadership. So I'm really excited to get into these topics tonight. So topic number 1, coming from Summer, who's going to kick us off on there is no single best channel. There really isn't. And I wrote about this in tonight's newsletter that went out. You can subscribe on reveting.com, but I shared some evidence-based research about it. And, every platform is going to claim the success. And yeah, exactly. They're going to be like, we brought in this sale. We claim the conversion. But there has to be a secret sauce to figure out which platform. But can you talk to us about this and what's your take on all that, Summer?
So this comes from, and I appreciate you highlighting this. This comes from when people come to me, I get a lot of questions because I do the podcast and also because I do the consultant work. They'll ask me, what is working right now? And I know that what they're meaning is like, where do I go find dinner? Where do I find leads? And sometimes they will say, well, my outbound isn't working. My inbound isn't working anymore. My leads are dropping. I have partners that don't deliver. And, what I will tell people is, well, what works? It depends. It depends on your stage. It depends on your location. It depends on your industry. It depends on the size of your team, your resources. But more than anything, it depends on your buyer. It depends on your buyer and what they like. My SaaS companies I work with, there's a high tolerance for AI. And when I'm working in financial services or with health tech or even like health services, there's a little bit of like, let's be super careful. So it's diagnosing what you're doing that's working well. I'm working with companies that are post-revenue, that are post-launch. they're feeling stuck, but they're not, circling the drain. So what is working? Let's do more of that. What feels like it's failing? Let's figure out why it's failing. And usually the reason why it's not getting the results that it needs, or that you need, is like, you're not doing enough of it. Your messaging doesn't resonate with your buyer. Or maybe you are, you're kind of using, I want to say, like pre-chat GPT methodologies. If you're dialing for dollars and you're arriving at a discovery call, asking really easy questions when the buyer has already used their AI to totally research you. There's just a lot of things that need to be reverse engineered right now. And I don't come with boring data right now. That's for the blog. But like right now, it's like, just tell me what you are doing. Tell me what isn't working. Why does it feel like it's not working? And unfortunately, the answer is so nuanced. But it really boils down to knowing your buyer intimately and knowing what they care about, what their challenges are that you uniquely solve, the outcomes that you get them that no one else can get them, and the how you're different than the competitor or what they're currently doing. Like, how can you change their life, and really showing that you care about that. And once you figure that out, we can figure out the better channel, or we can figure out the better messaging or cadences or whatever.
Exactly. It's all about the audience, right? Gonna make it about
Totally.
who we're targeting. Yeah, simply put. What would you say here, Rocco?
Well, for most parts, I agree with everything that Summer said. One thing that I would add is that when it comes to the channel that you need to pick, most marketers forget the ground rule of marketing is that we are talking to people. Our customers are people. Our leads are people. And sometimes marketers forget about the rule of common sense. They try to overcomplicate something that is very simple. And using common sense gets you all the way toward performance in marketing. So obviously, the first step is going to be to understand who your customer is, why their customer might be needing you, and what do they need to hear from you. And that's something that you don't need ChatGPT for. You do not need AI for. You need a brain that thinks and thinks about common sense. For example, if my blackboard in my office needs pens, I'm going to look for erasers, markers that I can write with that on, right? I don't need to look for a buyer desperate to buy a pen. No, somebody's looking for a pen because they need a pen. And sometimes we tend to overcomplicate things as marketers. So the channel is obviously dependent on the product and dependent on the customers, but it's extremely important to never forget about the common sense in doing things in marketing.
Common sense. Yeah, absolutely.
It's
100%. So I'm curious from the audience, what's common sense to you? And I know we've gotten some questions here. Someone was asking about AI. We've got David and AP here.
Somebody asked a question about, like, what does working mean? I mean, I'll take that one. Working means, is it working for you? Working generally means, in my book, I don't care about anything unless it converts to revenue that is retained. So usually the CEOs or the founders that I'm working for, working means we're getting leads, the leads convert, they go into a sale, the customer is retained, the founder makes money. That's how I define working.
Yes. But you're primarily on the sales side, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
So yeah, exactly. On the marketing side, I find it difficult sometimes, especially when we're just getting the marketing engine flowing, because we do organic content and it can take time, to like turn that into leads and then leads who pay. And so, but businesses who invest in the long game, of course, there's ads there too, which I'm sure, Rocco, you have a take on this. But yes, you want to tie it to revenue. That is the ultimate goal.
I mean, at the end of the day, common sense applies to business owners as well, right? Because there are some sales cycles that are not as immediate as 1, 2, 3, right? Like you're buying a car. Well, I'm gonna bring you bad news. Users take a long time to decide on a car. So essentially, an engaged lead is the best you can get, and then you nurture that lead, right? But there are some sales cycles that last 2 years for some software companies, right? So essentially, the common sense in that case is what business model do you have and what can you do to make it successful? And I was just talking the other day with a new hire that a client of mine hired, and she got fired in 2 weeks because we had a disagreement. And the disagreement was that Facebook should make more money than what you're spending in advertising every month. And I was telling her that this is a business making money or recurring revenue from users you acquire in month 1. It takes 9 months to break even, and then you bring profit. So I was telling her that there is no way you're going to spend $100,000 and make 120 in month 1. You're going to make it in month 11. It's called lifetime ROAS. And in that case, the business owner needs to understand his own business model if they want to see their revenue coming, because it's not always a one-to-one relation.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Absolutely.
You know, Jessie, I thought of one extra thing for why there's no one channel. And there's no one channel, or you shouldn't rely on one channel, because A, things change rapidly. However, I learned this when I grew up in financial services. If there's a business critical function, you have to have backups, like on the warmer, like a hot backup. A bank can't have just one transmission channel. So you shouldn't really have one channel that you use for your customer acquisition or your lead acquisition or anything like that. Like, what if LinkedIn shuts you down? You're going to be scrambling. But if you've already been using Twitter or YouTube or whatever, I'm sorry, it's X now. If you have all these other channels, you go, okay, well, we'll just invest in this one more, and we'll rebuild our LinkedIn or whatever. It's de-risking your outreach strategy as well, just in case.
I love just in case. So good. Any other questions from the popcorn gallery or comments? That I know there've been a lot. Like, feel free to throw them up there. What is the buyer doing these days? What's happening to the buyer now that GEO, generative engine optimization, is a thing? Asking Andrew Paul AP. Summer, what's your take here?
The buyer is waiting longer and longer and longer and longer until they engage with a salesperson. And because I'm a sales leader by trade, I get to say that salespeople, you did this to yourself by doing all sorts of like pushy sales tactics. So buyers do a ton of research. And generally what we're finding is that when they engage in a sales conversation, they've already narrowed it down to their 2 or 3 favorites. And it ends up being their validation. Like, they're almost to their decision by the time they're talking to someone in sales, instead of engaging the salesperson early to learn, with one exception. If it's an AI first product, they're engaging earlier because it's new and there's not a lot of context and they need to learn about it. So I'm seeing 2 very different buyer behaviors depending on what the company is offering.
Interesting take. Rocco, what are your thoughts here?
Personally, in the last few years, I've noticed a shift where if a company needs a salesperson to sell a product, the company is already one step into the ground, because you need the consumer these days. They want to know everything up front. And like Summer said, the salesperson is almost like an enabler to answer the last few questions that obviously you cannot get everything from a website, right? So the consumer now, whenever they find, oh, you need to contact us for pricing, or we cannot tell you what to integrate with. I had a company this week that I asked for an information in regards to what features do you offer? And their answer was, you need to sign an NDA for that. I was like, are you joking about? I'm literally asking for the features you have in your product, right? So the consumer is engaging with salespeople, but for a different reason. They do not need to know what the product does. They need to know the details about the product. So like Summer said, the role of the salespeople has changed to being almost like a product expert, but for those details, nuances that the consumer cannot interpret from a website made for many people.
Yes, exactly.
I like
Great
that.
point.
And if we have time, I want to add one extra thing, Rocco. That was a good ad. And I'm going to add to your ad. The salesperson is there to help the buyer make a choice and to confidently make the correct choice for them, because there's a lot out there, and a buyer could have their problem and ideate with Claude and then go on to something else, and they've sort of forgotten about it, and they didn't really solve their problem. So a good salesperson can help a B2B buyer make the correct decision for them confidently.
Yes, absolutely. I love the way you put that. Well, let's get into our next topic before we run out of time, which is all about advertising inside AI-powered conversations. So I'm really excited to hear from Rocco on this, because last time I talked to Rocco about advertising, it was pre-ChatGPT. But let's be serious, right, Rocco? AI and advertising goes way back before ChatGPT. ChatGPT just exposed AI to the public in written form, like you get with ChatGPT, which it does way more now, of course. But for example, like BDEX, where I'm still fractional CMO, they were using AI and machine learning years ago to take audience data and turn it into better targeted lists. That you could take customer data and use machine learning to learn about that data to go find more people who match that data. Just one example. But now there's this AI powered conversations, there's advertising. I mean, it's going everywhere, Rocco. Like, fill us in. What do we need to know here?
Well, the first thing that I think it's important to clarify in regards to AI is that AI is creating opportunities for advertisers, but it is also clearing up the ground from a lot of people that shouldn't be doing marketing. Marketing is not clicking a button to publish a campaign. Marketing is about strategizing, understanding, executing, and it's all about the point of views that people have and experience in determining whether a campaign is successful or not. Back in the day, marketing required a lot of manual work that can now be automated, like platform like Shirofune, where I work at, but that doesn't remove the human component, which is humongously important. Yeah, today it's funny that just happened. Yesterday, Claude was down for 2.5 hours. And I had an ongoing discussion with a client that I believe one of their employees was only using AI because all of the recommendations were good, but they were missing the know-how of the person. And I was kind of spotting that. Well, she had to create something during those 2.5 hours, and it was terrible, like of a quality that you could not even fathom. And I realized Claude was down. That's why it was terrible. That means that AI is going to help us execute faster what you are thinking of doing. Typical example is negative keywords on Google. Well, now you can create thousands of negative keywords, speeding up the campaign learning and lowering your cost per acquisition at a much faster pace. But the way you generate those keywords is based on a strategy you have. And I think this is not going to stop here. We're going to be able to completely remove the need of manual tasks in marketing, but we are going to have an increasing need of strategies behind those machines. Because let's remember, these are still machines and cannot replicate the full know-how and experience of a person that developed toward working on real life scenarios and what's happening in the real world. And also AI needs to be controlled and needs to be told what to do in a certain way to get a certain result. You can give the same task to two people that work at the same company and you get completely opposite results. That's based on the strategy put behind the machine as well. So am I worried about marketers disappearing? No. Do I believe marketers have a huge opportunity these days to be able to get even more efficient and better results for their clients? Absolutely. And I would like to conclude it with an example I give everybody. Back in the 1900s, where the first cars started popping up, there were people saying that cars won't be successful because horses get you from A to B the same way a car does. And I live in Fort Lauderdale, and trust me, I don't see a single person on a horse anymore. So that means that it wasn't really true that cars won't be successful.
You don't see anyone on a horse anymore? Are you sure? We
Police
see it
every
here
now
every
and
once
then.
in a while. What was that?
Police, sometimes they do for show. They go around in a horse over town.
Yeah, definitely. Well, before I share my thoughts here, Summer, what's your take on advertising inside AI-powered conversations?
I just have questions, if that's okay. I'm going to jump the line and ask questions since I'm here in the room. So, Rocco, I am really interested in advertising within AI models. We knew it was going to get there, right? Of course. They can't keep burning billions of dollars every quarter. Advertising's everywhere. And the first time I saw an ad in an LLM was in Perplexity, and it was almost 2 years ago. And my husband, because I cooked dinner, okay, my husband brought home a really interesting ingredient that he found at World Market or whatever. And he's like, here, figure out how to cook with this. I was like, I don't know what this is. So then I took a picture of it. I put it in Perplexity, and how it gives you those questions. One of the questions was like, could I find this at Whole Foods? Is this healthy? And I was like, what? That is really weird. But then I realized that it was, Whole Foods paid for that placement. And for me, it kind of broke the experience a little. And it kind of broke my trust as a user in that platform. And, we have so many people going to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever and getting all their answers. I do wonder, first of all, like, because I care about the buyer, is that going to break something with the buyer and their trust if we're jamming ads into their ChatGPT feed?
First of all, somebody should blame your husband. Like, he created this whole problem within Perplexity, right? So we always blame the man, I guess. But jokes aside, I have a completely different perspective on this topic. I'm going to take a step back. When Facebook removed cookie tracking, I was very upset. But not because I'm a marketer, because I'm a consumer. There are certain things that I like. And let's say I'm shopping. At the time, I believe I was shopping for an iPad. And I'm an Android user. I don't like iPhones. I don't like Apple. And I like that if I wanted a product, all I had to do is to visit a couple of websites talking about tablets, and then my Facebook would serve me the best offers for tablets. I love that. Because now I can shop and get the ads I want. They removed that from me, right? So now I actually need to go and search for tablets. So I think the question is not about breaking the trust with consumer, but is the company, whether it's Perplexity, Claude, or ChatGPT, going to have ethical enough ownership that it is going to show you things that really help you? Because if I'm looking for instance, for a lawyer, right? Because let's say I'm getting my citizenship. So I was looking for an immigration lawyer. If the recommendation is truly the best for me, I want that recommendation. Now, if I'm looking for a recipe and clearly I have the ingredient and you're telling me we want to shop for your next ingredient at Whole Foods, that's irrelevant. So I think if they have an opportunity, people right now, they have the opportunity to make things right and make things focus on user first for usability and relevancy. And I think that's what's going to make or break the trust, in my opinion.
That's a good point.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Oh, so much here. And, it's kind of another reason personally I keep screaming about creating actual organic content. Because in my opinion, if AI becomes one of the places where people are discovering companies, you need the internet to understand who you are and what you're an expert in. And, getting out content with distribution across channels where you're talking about it in depth. That's important because people aren't just writing one keyword anymore. They're writing like their whole life story and then maybe a little bit about what they want to do. And that's why I'm bullish on live streaming, podcasts, YouTube, LinkedIn, like content and long form conversations. We're not just, creating it for the feed. It's like, it's real, it's human, but then it helps with your AEO, your GEO, your SEO. But yeah, I mean, there's still ads aren't going anywhere. And it's It's going to get interesting as time progresses. So, Rocco, how would you sum up this topic?
So the sum up is we got to essentially experience it. We got to understand that as we work in this AI-driven world, it's not something that is meant to be bad. There is something in human mankind. I studied a lot of psychology during my degrees, and one of the things that I learned is that most people are scared of change. That's why there is actually the terminology early adopters. It's not because they always want to try things first, it's because they're less scared. But people are scared of change. Like, when we say, oh, my grandma will never change the town she lives in because she's so used to that. Well, guess what? We are the same way, just a bit younger. So this topic means we are not in a phase where we decide whether to adopt it or we decide whether we want to use it. We need to. It's just about how much do you want to commit to it before it becomes the standard. And I believe both of you probably remember when it was considered an advantage to their clients. I don't use AI. Well, now if you tell a client, I don't use AI, you don't have a job anymore. So I think the sum up is it's not advertising inside AI-powered conversation, is advertising. That's just advertising these days. It's not with AI, just advertising.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I come from the school of thought that people are scrolling past ads more these days. It's harder to capture their attention, but I know we need them to scale. But of course, organic shouldn't be ignored. And Rocco, you and I can go back and forth on this all day, and I would love to. But for now, we've got a brief message. We're going to take a brief break, and we will be right back for 2 really hot sales and marketing topics. At Reviting, we help B2B founders, executives, brands turn their live streaming into a real revenue channel. One live stream turns into a podcast. It turns into a social clip. It turns into email content like a newsletter and actual sales conversations. You get to have a lot of conversations with people when you have a podcast or a live stream like this. And if you want to be known, trusted, and remembered in your industry, without being online 24/7, worrying about your posting, this is what we do. Just head on over to reviting.com and let's build your show.
I want to give a quick testimonial for the Reviting team. I was really nervous about doing lives. They very much have helped me increase my reach and online presence. So thank you, Reviting.
I love what you and the team do. I've been picking up 50 followers a day just because that content is resonating so well. It's working across a lot of different channels for me.
One of the problems that we struggle with is getting our brand out there. Her team have been able to do for us is the idea of going live on LinkedIn and using that platform to its fullest extent through the way they're able to take the live event and break it down into bite-sized posts, video clips, as well as the content within the posts themselves.
But Jessie,
The
what's
guru
funny?
of the week.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM on Gulf High level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
On screen right now, if you're listening on audio only, we're showing a menu of services from Cherry Assistant, and there's so many things that they help with. So if this is something that you're interested in, just reach out to them, cherryassistant.com. If you do, make sure you let them know you heard about them through WinsDay for $250 off your first month. And I was eating an apple backstage. So I'm like, I hope I didn't get anything in my teeth. But anyway, I'm just keeping it real. I'm a real human here. This is not AI generated. It is a real live conversation, and we're getting to real life sales and marketing topics. But our third topic, Summer, is stop copying someone else's GTM playbook. Oh my gosh, I see so many coaches doing this. Like, they just take a playbook, they rename it, and then they like call it their own. And then it's usually with like a high level account. They'll just like copy the account. But I digress. Let's hear from you on this.
Yeah. So since you said coach, I'm going to take it to a sports analogy. Rocco's an athlete here. It's football starting soon. The Chiefs are not going to come out with copying the playbook from the Seattle Seahawks because they won the Super Bowl last year, and it has to be custom. What I used to see in corporate pre-ChatGPT was a lot of like, well, what are our competitors doing? What do those guys do? And I was constantly the person who was like, no, we need to do our own thing. We need to be our own. Like, let's not copy them. They're not the same company. Yes, they're the same industry, but we're a different size. We have slightly different customers, whatever. And then what I see at scale now is I'm going to go to Claude and I'm going to ask Claude for a sales campaign. And then it gives you something that looks good. And if you're not an expert sales leader or a sales trainer or a sales strategist, you're going to be like, yes, this is awesome. And you're going to go do it. You know where Claude gets all that stuff from? It gets it from all the blogs and all the case studies that have been out on the web since Google was invented, 20 years ago. And so it's giving you an amalgamation of what's already out there. And one of my partners says that Claude is great at giving you yesterday's strategy. And I love that. So I stole it. Shout out to Tony. And that's what I mean by someone else's playbook. If you're doing it yourself and you're using AI and you don't have a trained leader leading the input, reviewing the output, you're going to get something that's pretty generic. And if we're talking again about what works, pretty generic doesn't work. It doesn't move your buyer. It might not be enough outbound. It might not be enough follow-up. It might not be the right message. So if you're trying to save money by using your $20 Claude subscription to vibe code your own revenue strategy, I'm going to say it doesn't work. And then before I want to hear from you guys, what I'm starting to see, and this year is the year, I think Rocco talked about, we used to have people being really proud of not using AI. This is the year where I see a lot of people using AI. And so I think what we're going to see is like, I did a strategy through Claude. I executed. I did a bunch of stuff. And then at the end of the year, like, did it affect your revenue? Did it affect your profit in the right way? I think we're going to see a reckoning soon where maybe some of these things fell flat or they felt like they were doing something, but it didn't really move the needle. And I'm here to wonder, like, how much did we leave on the table?
Yeah, it's a great point.
I hate that too, by the way.
Yeah, we don't want to leave anything on the table. Ideally.
No.
Yeah.
Clean your plate.
Rocco, what's your take here?
So I think it depends a lot on the business, because there are some business types where you cannot change much the operation. If you're, let's say you're Burger King and McDonald's, right? You sell sandwiches. Yeah, yours is tastier, $1 more, $1 less. So going back to the Chiefs example that Summer made, there is something in sport that makes a humongous difference. Because when you're watching a sports game, particularly at those levels, we forget that we are watching the best people in the world doing something. The best. There is nobody better than them. What makes the difference is a 1%. It could be psychological, it could be athletical, it could be anything, but the 1%. And in business, there are some businesses that are so good that company A or B really is very similar, but the 1% is okay. But the 1% doesn't come from God. It comes from executive, it comes from people, it comes from customer service, the sales support, post-sales support. And that is really what company keeps forgetting, that the 1% human driven.
I think we may have lost your sound a little bit. I don't know if that's just me, but yeah, the 1%.
I got the 1% though. And that 1% matters.
Yeah.
It
And
does.
if you're outsourcing it to an LLM who's really kind of flattening it, I work with early stage startups also. And what I'm hearing from the investors is that the decks are all kind of looking the same. And it's really hard for investors to sort through and see who really has traction and who really has a differentiator, because everybody went, hey, ChatGPT, fix my deck. And it did. And now it's just all kind of like, flip. It's a bunch of beige companies out there.
Summer, right? If you think about that, like, look at my job, right? PPC campaigns. Do you really think that a PPC campaign is that difficult to set up, right? No. It's a keywords ads, then you go to a website. Eventually, everybody gets the same kind of website. The difference is the strategy. And the strategy is very similar. It's razor thin. It's always about the 1% in an era where talent, guess what? We might be the smarter in our room, but there are plenty of rooms out there with smarter people than us, right? So you always need to strive for the 1%.
Strive for the 1%. Yeah, I like that takeaway. Strive for the 1%. So what is the actionable takeaway on this topic before we transition into the next one?
I always bring it back to knowing the buyer. I mean, you start with the buyer. If I go into a company and they're a little stuck, I want to know from customer success, why do people like? Why do they stay? I want to talk to the salespeople. Why are you losing deals? And from there, we can figure out the secret sauce. We can figure out that 1%. The customer success folks, they know it more than anybody. And if, that's there's a secret little recipe.
Secret little recipe. I love that. Okay, awesome. Well, let's get into our final topic for tonight, which is making digital ad spend drive ROAS. So return on ad spend. This is something that a lot of businesses are not thinking about. They're just throwing cash into their ads and they're not paying attention to their ROAS. So what do they need to do, especially now with AI, Rocco, to drive ROAS?
They actually need to automate even more if possible. Back in my career, one of the things that I noticed, you guys can keep Summer. She's better looking than me, guys. Better choice. But no, early on in my career, one of the things that I noticed is that there was a word that was very fancy in marketing, which was the word attribution. And then eventually companies started buying attribution software solutions. And then they got the numbers. And then they realized those numbers were very important, very accurate, but very hard to act on. This is a problem because when you get a lot of data and you need a day to analyze that data and make a decision, you're making a decision looking at yesterday's numbers. Similar to what Summer was saying, the cloud gives you the strategy for yesterday. Well, the same thing with attribution. You need automations to bring the data right away in your campaign, make decisions at the same time immediately. A person cannot do that. A team cannot do that. That needs to be done by automations. So getting ROAS is not only something that, of course, starts at the marketing level. It goes all the way also into operation. One of the things that, for example, could affect ROAS is how you're handling those leads you're getting. Not too long ago, I was talking to a client that main source of leads are messages on TikTok. They do campaigns to get messages. And I called them and I was like, hey guys, you're getting a lot of leads. What's happening to those leads? Oh, they're not converting much. Who is responding to these leads? It's our guy in India. Can I see the messages? They were literally copy and paste every answer, right? So now all of a sudden it's not a marketing problem anymore. So in that case, the automation that we're using was used in a bad way. So you need to use your brain. You need to make sure that your automation is actually setting up for success. But ROAS needs to use automation. Like I cannot stress that enough because there is no way to gain those margins unless you do that. And we live in a world, Summer mentioned it earlier, where customers are thinking longer before taking a decision. Translated in business terms, that means customers are costing us more to acquire. because all of a sudden you're not acquired at the same rate because they're thinking longer. They might forget about you. They might get a better offer somewhere else. So margins are getting smaller. And as margins are getting smaller, you need to make sure to automate as much as you can to get those margins to stay where they are with a lower amount of customers. So I hope that answered your questions, but I was trying to essentially outline that ROAS is not simply about I put 10, I get 20. There is a lot more behind it.
Mm-hmm. So I want to pick Rocco's brain again if I can. I don't have something to add right now. I've got an ad expert. I want to ask her a question. Google Ads. I work in B2B. Google Ads. That's, those are the king. And I'm seeing ad spend go up, even though there's fewer clicks. We know what Google's doing. They're charging, the CPC is higher because fewer people click the blue link, right? So, for somebody who is saying, I used to get a lot of leads from Google and now I don't, do you have a little bit of wisdom for them?
So here I'm going to share my personal opinion. But if you ask anybody when problems got worse, they will start telling you at the beginning of this year. And if they know a little bit more about marketing, one of the things they were going to notice is that all of a sudden, terms that are on brand and business relevant, they're starting to trigger competitor names in the search term report. I actually had to add thousands and thousands of negative keywords to my clients to make up for it. What I think is really happening is that Google is losing market share to AI tools. People are searching on AI more and more, making it lose market share. One more thing that supports this crazy theory of mine is that yesterday, I believe, August 18th, Google has launched a bidding algorithm update where, let's say you have a target CPA of 50 and your campaign is performing at 30. They claim it's performing at 30 because Google, when you're limited by budget, tries to get you the lowest cost possible. They said, we are going to stop doing that. You're probably going to pay 60 if your bid is 60 now. That all tells me, looking at a company that is publicly traded, that most likely Google is bleeding searches. So in a world where Google is bleeding searches, what people should do is they should stuff their accounts with negative keywords. I use an AI script to analyze search term reports. And with companies like Shirofune, we automate all of that. And then once I have that, I start differentiating and going into an omni-channel strategy. First thing first, for B2B, a lot of computers that have Microsoft automatically reset their browser to Bing when you type in the address bar. So do advertising on Bing, exact match. Don't go anything below exact match there because they're going to essentially kill your campaigns. You need to start advertising on OpenAI. People are searching there, so be there. So answer number one, negative keywords. Maybe spend less on Google. Answer number two, differentiate your channels.
Yeah, I like it. It brings us back to the beginning, which was there's no one channel.
Yeah.
There's no one channel.
The early advertisers on ChatGPT, they're going to have an advantage before it gets crowded, right? So I like that.
It depends, because I honestly believe that if they're smart, they're going to focus on relevancy. And for example, there are a lot of, actually it was 2 weeks ago that after 6 months, we were able to get 15 advertisers off of Google. One of my clients was fighting against a person that advertised for roadside assistance and never sent trucks. It was essentially a scam ring they were running. It took us 6 months to take them off of Google, although all the reviews were negative of people saying we are not getting the trucks to come. So if OpenAI is going to focus on relevancy and real businesses, yes, there will be competition, but it will be fair competition based on results, I feel. So ROAS will be higher to compensate for the competition. But I might be wrong. I don't run those companies, guys.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like B2B marketers need to have a much bigger conversation about ROAS because attribution just got weird. And let's say someone discovers me or you on this LinkedIn Live. they've, seen my posts for 6 months. They've watched this show. They've gone on podcasts. Maybe someone sends them one of my videos in a Slack message, or maybe WhatsApp, and then they Google Reveting and they visit the website. And maybe they click that ad instead of like the organic one. And then like maybe a week later they see a retargeted ad and they finally convert. Like, who gets credit for that customer? Speaking of, not just one platform, because, Google's going to say it was us. And of course the attribution software is going to say it was the ad. And the advertiser is going to be trying to justify the ad spend. But like dark social is a real thing. So what's your thought on that, Rocco?
I am a big believer that the first touch should be king in this, for one simple reason. How did they get to know about me first? But then from there, I usually tell my clients they should have a secondary attribution model, which is a linear one where every channel gets a little bit attributed to it. But why do they need to do that? The first touch is important to understand where you need to spend your marketing dollars. Because if people are getting to know you from this channel, you want more people to get to know you from there. But if you do not use a linear at the same time for understanding reasons, you're going to start investing maybe less in email marketing or organic. But guess what? One of my first classes in business, they told me that the customer needs to see a brand 5 to 6 times before converting. I think probably now it's more 10 or 15 because, there are so many choices. But
I think Gartner said closer to 40 or something like that.
It depends. My wife closer to 70, right? Like it really depends. It really depends. Summer is laughing because I know she knows I'm right.
67 times.
But yeah, that's the point, right? One model for attributing marketing spend, and one model to making logical business decisions.
Yeah, definitely. So much there. But the attribution software is not going to pick up the LinkedIn Live. You got to capture the qualitative data of how did you hear about this? But I digress. This has been a really great conversation. And before we transition off this topic, though, Rocco, like, what would be your actionable advice to marketers on this, like, real briefly?
2 things. Number 1, don't you ever think you know more than anybody else. The moment you start doing that is when you start downfalling in your career. You always need to think that you can learn. And I believe probably people like Elon Musk, that's why they're successful. I believe Elon Musk believes he can learn from other people as well. But number 2, it is going to be to always try new things. We are in a line of work where we cannot afford to think that the way we do things is the way it's always going to be done. AI showed that in literally a matter of a year, but it's going to keep changing. The new things are going to come up. So stay humble and keep learning.
Stay humble and keep learning. I love that. Okay, well, real quick, we got to get into the guru of the week before we go. Gonna get that video here. The guru of the week. Ooh, the guru of the week. Ooh. And the guru is Rocco and Summer. Who are your gurus this week?
Ladies first.
Okay, so I want to give a shout out to Kruti Baires. She is the founder and the CEO of the Sprint Fit, and she is my mission-aligned startup who I totally love. She is solving for the gap between good ideas that are everywhere and capital that is located in rich uncles and Silicon Valley. And she's bringing investors and founders and operators together so that people who might not have a rich dad or Bay Area access or a Stanford or whatever, that they have a real shot at making their dreams come true.
A real shot. Make your dreams come true. I love that. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. And Rocco, how about you?
As for me, I would say my friend Matthew Williams. I met him a couple of years back now. We never met in person. We're just online friends, so to say. and we developed a professional friendship. And he's just such a nice guy, super smart. Whatever he does, he always does it well. He currently works at ROAS in Abu Dhabi, and is just a super nice person. I've never seen him doing something out of personal interest. If he can help, he always helps people. And sometimes we forget that nice people are very hard to find. And I would like to give him a shout out.
That is so cool. Shout out to him. Thank you so much for sharing, Rocco. Now, before we go, just one last thing. We want to know a little bit more about both of you. Who it is you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you? Summer?
Okay. I work with two types of CEOs. One is the founder who is ready to finally get out of sales. Either they are the primary salesperson or they're overseeing a small sales team and they know they can't get the next level of growth if they're constantly working in the business. I also work with the stuck CEO, I'm at $9 million ARR and I'm profitable, but I should be happy, but it drives me nuts that I'm not at 50 million. You know, I'm looking at Elon Musk too. And I help them diagnose what might be stuck and reset the foundation on the revenue side so that they can get profitable growth and achieve their dreams. And where you can find me, I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast also. It is Revenue Remix. It is available everywhere you can get your podcasts. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on there probably more than I probably should be. And you can find me at my website. It is theriseofus.com.
Amazing. Thank you both so much for sharing and for coming on the show, spending this last hour with us, really hour and 15 minutes, because we did have a 15-minute pre-show. And I'll be seeing you again here in just a moment backstage. But thank you again so much for coming on. And everyone who's watching, thank you for watching. And if you didn't catch the whole episode, we are on all major podcast platforms. So you can find us there. And, you know, we're making posts and clips from our episode on our social channels. So be sure to tune in and follow. But I will see both of you backstage. Everyone else, see you next week. Happy Wednesday, everyone.